in Soviet Union, entrepreneurs were bad people.
Tomorrow I get the chance to meet Mark Zuckerberg. He's not going to be useful to me.
Your ambitions are not in line with the business model that you chose.
Soon there will be $1 billion products. And I love the idea.
That's why Nvidia outperforms the stock price every fucking day.
Tell me how to get this never-ending hunger for learning.
At some point you want to stop.
Why all people are crazy? Why life's so amazing? And when I have sometime I wanna cry.
Hello everyone, this is Silkroad Podcast, the podcast by Silkroad Innovation Hub. Silkroad Innovation Hub is a hub and a platform for founders from Central Eurasia. We help founders to expand or to lend and to start their businesses in the United States. Today with us, a founder, unique founder, originally from Turkmenistan, Bayram Annakov. Bayram, welcome.
Hi.
So Bayram, tell us what you're working on right now.
Okay, so right now, actually, let me step back. I'm like a long-time education enthusiast. I was teaching at a number of universities in Moscow, and I like to share knowledge.
Okay.
And I realized that it's obvious my time or every expert's time is very much limited, and their reach is limited because, well, there's just 24 hours in a day, right? So AI is the technology that could help scale the reach of an expert. So what we're building, we call it Mindshare, basically a way to help experts monetize their knowledge through digital twins and one-on-one consultations. So that's what I'm working now. Like, we launched the MVP back in December, so it's like really, really early.
Okay, can we deep dive a little bit into that? Like, what does it do, and what's the ideal customer profile?
Sure. So first of all, it's basically it's a marketplace. From one side, there are experts, for instance, in startups or like experienced entrepreneurs or experts in AI or whatever, and they. For instance, they share their knowledge through LinkedIn, Twitter, Telegram, and stuff. And but they would like to expand their reach. They would like to monetize their knowledge. So, they have followers who are interested in getting knowledge from those experts. So, what we essentially do, we help those who want to share the knowledge to share it, either through digital twins to make it like really scalable, or if, say, the response of a digital twin is not enough, like it's not, full, or it's not useful, you can actually book a consultation with an actual expert and have a one-on-one Zoom call or whatever. So this way, essentially what we're doing is that we're helping them like expand the reach of their knowledge, but at the same time monetize it through the one-on-one consultations.
Yeah, like in case if it doesn't work, it's an intro model, like
Yes, it's very much similar to intro. I think that intro lacks the digital twin stuff at the moment, at least, and I actually think that one of the issues of the intro is that they are focusing more on, I'd say, popular experts, where most of the times the popular guys do not know it all. For instance, let's say you're a founder of a global startup.
Okay.
And I want to get an advice on launching, say, my product in Southeast Asia. Most probably, the country manager for the Southeast Asia knows much more about that aspect of the global startup than the founder of the startup. So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes the most famous guy, the most popular guy, is not the one who actually has the tacit on the ground knowledge about a specific expertise area. So we want to essentially help both kind of experts, those who are popular
Yeah.
and those who actually know how to do that. Because this way, I think we can democratize access to knowledge, which
Yeah.
is essentially our goal.
Yeah, I love how you have made the difference between the two. Bear with me on this thought. Let's cook this thought up.
Yeah.
I have a conviction that
Uh-huh.
like I'm building a product,
Yep.
and even if I had the best warm intro in the world, and tomorrow I get the chance to meet Mark Zuckerberg, he's not going to be useful to me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I have the conviction that like for me at the level where I'm building my product, for instance, another startup who is just if I'm building like if I'm raising pre-seed, another startup who is just raised pre-seed or is raising his seed round,
Yep.
or if I'm just working towards MVP,
Yep.
another founder who has already built the MVP and like the worked with the design partners, he would be much more useful. And can you tell me what are you doing? Is there going to be like levels? Can you choose?
Yeah, that's a very good. So first of all, I totally agree that you learn best from, I'd say, the next stage, not 10 stages
Yeah.
ahead, right? And I absolutely agree. I'm a chess player, and you are not excited to play chess against the Kasparov,
Yeah,
right?
obviously.
Yeah, it's just that next level, maybe 2 levels ahead of you.
Maybe now,
Yeah.
like to talk some political stuff
Yes,
with him.
absolutely, yes. So, what we want to do is essentially, you know, the concept of vector in AI, right? That everything is represented as a vector.
Okay.
Okay, so we want to represent every person as a vector. So let's just imagine two vectors, your vector and my vector, and then let's add a vector of Mark Zuckerberg.
Yep.
Most probably, the similarity between our vectors is much higher than between our vector and Mark Zuckerberg. So vector is a like the cosine similarity or some similar metric that is used in AI will be the best way to find the right expert. And it's not only about the expertise. Sometimes it's about the books we read, or the shows we're excited about, or the podcasts we're listening to, right? So the way we're gonna implement the search is that when you have a question, you ask the question, and the digital twins of different experts will answer that question, and those whose vectors are most similar to your vector will be higher in the search results. So essentially, think of this as a Google, but by digital twins who are represented, who represent the actual biological humans.
Oh,
human
wow.
beings.
Yeah, this blows my mind. Like another thought, bear with me on this. I have a friend who has just recently finished his PhD, and I talk with him sometimes, and like during our short conversations, he does research on like identifying successful startups. Like he's like the research itself blew my mind. He analyzed like teaches AI to analyze the body language first of like facial expressions to analyze the successful founders if the formula works, and he's got patents and stuff. And like talking with him on the idea of the VC investing and like how to identify the founders, especially coming from our region, like it's really difficult to spot because like the things which you pay attention here might be different to things you pay attention back home, right? So I ask him a lot of questions, and like talking 15 minutes with him is much more useful than like reading lots of like the watching hours and hours of podcasts by the venture capitalists.
Absolutely.
It's like I have a problem. Maybe the podcast of those VCs will be helpful to frame my question and my ideas, but like to solve the specific puzzle which exists there, his knowledge is much more useful. But he's not known, and like the relationship of an economist might not be like immediate. Or do you have any thoughts on this? Like how are you like how would you implement that like to bring the best in the research in academia or
So one of the biggest challenges for us so far is Well, there are people who are, let's say, investing into getting the word out about themselves. Like they post on LinkedIn or Twitter. But there are people who are experts, but they are not like, outgoing. They
Yeah.
are not sharing their knowledge, even though they have a lot of knowledge. So one of the challenges that we have is how do we extract that knowledge? How do we? And we have some ideas, but I'd say that at this stage of the company, we'd better focus first on those who actually share,
Available.
and later go after the others. But my ultimate goal is I want the teachers and professors. Let me step back. So every successful person I know can name 2 or 3 teachers or professors who impacted them in their thinking in a big way.
Yeah.
But what's disappointing about this is most of the time the dividends are not, or the rewards, the dividends from the success of those students is not going funneled back to the teachers.
Yep.
And in most of our countries, and actually most countries in the world, teachers and professors are not, let me say, rich people.
Yep. Yeah.
So one of the ultimate goals of mine is to implement a marketplace, or think of this as an exchange, where you're actually, by sharing knowledge, you can exchange your shares.
Yeah.
The reason we call it mind share, there are 2 actual reasons in our project. So there are 2 reasons. First, when I share some knowledge, I'm like mind sharing with you. But actually, at the same time, shares is a concept of owning an equity, a stock in someone's mind.
Yeah.
So what the future that I envision is that when you actually can, say you're a teacher, you meet a very promising student. That student is not rich, or you don't feel like taking money from the person in any way. So what you're doing is you're essentially exchanging the mind shares of that person to your knowledge, and then when that person becomes successful, you get your dividends. So think of this as a VC kind of activity, but in people,
Personal
not
investment.
because every VC will tell you that they invest in founders.
Yeah.
Right? So
We find
why
the greatest
can't
founders.
we move the concept one step ahead and actually implement a way for parents, for teachers, for professors to invest by sharing their knowledge? That's essentially my. But it's like a third stage of our venture. Like we're on a stage 1 right now, where we just want to give the experts the tools to help them like scale their knowledge sharing activity and monetizing it.
Yeah, this is great. I've heard of a similar concept, what you're describing, because like on the outset, me being from legal background, I would have lots of questions on like how to organize the stuff, like the existing laws and regulations, tax incentives are not ready for this. But like I read an article and I did some research on the Lieberman brothers. They are promoting the same type of investing in a personal corporation. So like why corporations can raise money for their future revenues, but a person can't.
Yeah. Well, imagine a world where there's a marketplace where people share their knowledge in exchange for money.
Yeah.
Well, then there's a revenue stream of a person that is generated by the activity of knowledge sharing. So it could be, if we have that kind of world, then it's pretty straightforward to implement a mechanism to basically share part of those revenues with those who own some kind of token or some kind of equity in that. So it's not like a slavery, right? It's more about giving back, actually rewarding those who invested with their knowledge, invested in you. And from the other perspective, I think parents already do that. Like many parents, like my dad, when I sold my company, and
Yeah.
one of the first things that I did is I basically screenshotted the incoming wire
Yeah.
transfer and sent him, and then I bought a new apartment for them. So when I did that, he was telling to every kind of colleague, every person they know that now he's getting dividends from all the investment he made
Right.
into me.
Yeah.
And I think many parents think like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why don't we help? And the 3F for fundraising, right?
Yeah.
Family, friends. So friends do that in a way as well. So
Yeah.
why don't we help structure that kind of activity? And I think that we can come up with a mechanism how to implement that. But first, we need to build a marketplace where people can actually sell their knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that there are minor, or I'd say much smaller kind of expert networks where you can basically pick an expert in a specific field and have a call in exchange for money. But I just want to do that in a much more scalable way.
Yeah.
And where AI helps here is that actually it not only helps to like scale the knowledge sharing to much more people, but actually it helps the expert itself. Let me give you a story.
Yeah.
So my friend asked me to review the product manager checklist. So they prepared this checklist of the skills that every young product manager should know. And I was reviewing it and basically made some comments. But then I'm like, well, why don't I ask my digital twin to do the same? So I'm asking my digital twin, which we MVP'd, like, hey, what are the key kind of requirements for or skills needed for a product manager? And of the 4 ideas that were in that response, 3 were in my comments. So it did a pretty good job. But what happened is that the 4th one was actually the one that I shared with my Telegram followers back in 2019, and I actually forgot about it.
Yeah.
Because every person forgets, right?
Yeah.
But what AI or what broadly computer does, it doesn't forget.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually reminded me of a very important idea I had back in the day.
Yeah.
And I obviously incorporated it, but it actually refreshed my memory and maybe refocused my way of thinking about this topic. And I think that's very good when you realize that your digital twin is not competing with you.
Yeah.
It's actually your
Helping.
co-pilot,
Yeah.
right? You're helping you. Well, that changes the whole game, I think. And that was aha moment for my product, for myself. And now as we develop those twins for other experts, I'm getting that kind of, like today I shared that like a test version of a digital twin with one of our experts. And he actually writes posts in a very, let's say, humorous, spicy tone. And the digital twin actually was fine-tuned to follow the same style.
Yeah.
So there was something along the lines of agile, magile. Like he likes to play with words.
Yes.
So Twin did that. But what's funny is that expert never wrote that specific kind of agile, magile thing ever.
It's
so
like
when he read it, he was like, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I have never said that, but it's actually as if I would have said that. And that's amazing. That's what I'm excited about. And so it's both, first of all, helping you be aware of your knowledge.
Yeah.
And second is actually helping you scale the knowledge sharing with the millions, billions, well, basically unlimited, because it's a software that you can scale with zero costs.
That's great. I would love if I had a co-pilot who could respond to my inquiries with the Matt Levine style, like
absolutely.
with the same.
Or we could train a digital twin for all of the podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, for all of the episodes, and this way, for instance, the person that's interested in founders and startups from Central Asia would basically be talking to the digital twin of the podcast
Yeah.
and getting the information. Yeah.
This is so great. But Bayram, you're not new to this idea of like education and sharing, right? You have lots of experience.
Yeah.
What are the comments I've read somewhere in LinkedIn or somewhere like this? Bayram is a leading mind in his expertise in CIS countries. Like he gives lectures in Moscow State University, Higher School of Economy.
Yeah.
Like those schools are top schools.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
on any metrics, those are like leading schools.
Yeah.
And you have experience teaching there.
Yes.
And you believe on the idea of like I also found that the one of the leading factors for you is that giving back and,
Yes.
and sharing
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah.
And your current project is also logical
Yep.
next step.
Yep.
Before I ask that, like, do you have a name for your project right now?
Yeah, it's Mindshare.
Mindshare.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So let's start with your background on education. Like, how did you think of starting like to share knowledge, and why?
So let me start with a story from the kindergarten.
Oh wow.
I mean, I know it sounds.
Is it
silly,
in
but
Turkmenistan?
still.
Or-
Yeah, in
yeah.
Turkmenistan. So I was very early at reading. Yeah, so I don't remember the exact age, but what happened is that our teacher in the kindergarten,
Yep.
she actually sometimes left me with a book.
Yeah.
And I was reading to all of my
Other kids.
fellow other kids, and she just left. So for like probably she had some stuff to do. I don't know, but I have this vivid picture where I'm sitting in a circle and I'm reading this book to all of the other kids. So probably that goes back to that time. But to be serious, I always wanted to share knowledge because, well, first of all, this is the way you learn better. Like when you share something, you actually learn and you understand better the topic. Most of it happened when I was at Moscow State Technical University, I think the second year, where basically the teacher gave me an opportunity and I just took it, and I realized that I'm getting a lot of positive energy inside by doing this activity. So essentially I have only two passions in my life. Those are travel.
Yep.
That was my first venture, and now the education. That's my next big venture, at least. So I think that I just every person has some kind of activity or hobby that gives them a lot of energy, and I think education, sharing knowledge, sharing something, is that kind of activity for me. That's why I'm here, actually.
Great. Yeah, and we are lucky to have you here. Seeing you experienced doing some research on your background, on the topics you've gave lectures or some
Yep.
talks,
Yeah.
I kind of get the feeling you kind of caught. We were talking about like tech waves, like the
Okay.
starting from the 2000s
Okay.
boom
Yep.
and
Yep.
the mobile
Yeah.
social network marketplaces, Web3, now
Yeah.
AI,
Yeah.
and like it seems like you caught almost all of them.
No, not all of them, but we were very much lucky with mobile apps.
Yep.
Yes, I'd say that the mobile wave was the one that we actually decided to ride, and even pretty successfully. And I think that it was a combination of actually. Do you want to know how I started the mobile apps development?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was. It was back in 2009, 2010 probably, in Moscow, and a friend of mine, he invited me to this secret bar in Moscow.
Okay.
And that bar was founded by a very popular barman. He won a bunch of awards worldwide, and he basically introduced me to that guy. And started discussing different stuff, and I had iPhone, he had iPhone. At the time, iPhone was not that, like popular.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, there's this app that I like. And he showed me an app by Absolute brand that basically teaches you to make cocktails out of Absolute vodka.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to have a similar app, because he had a website for barmen, and he was teaching other barmen how to prepare different cocktails and stuff. And I was like, because I used to be a developer, and I developed for Mac as well. I was like, well, I can do that for you.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're drunk, let's discuss tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he gives me a call the next afternoon probably, and he's like, were you serious?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And but I had zero knowledge of Objective-C for iOS development at the time. But I had experience building for Mac apps, so I realized that it probably will be similar to that. So I was teaching at software engineering faculty at High School of Economics. So I'm the next day I have a lecture, and I'm like, asking students if anyone is interested in learning how to code iOS apps. So there was this guy, and we started working on this, and I think in 4 or 5 months we released our first iOS app. So that was like absolutely kind of not planned kind of thing. But I always was, I am a fan of Apple products.
Yeah.
So probably something inside of me was, triggering me to do something about that. I liked iPhone, so why don't I develop apps for it?
So the biggest project in apps is App in the Air,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So tell me about the story, like the how you did it, and
Sure.
maybe like if you can share how you exited.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, after developing a bunch of apps in this kind of software outsourcing kind of mode, we realized that we want to build something of our own, like, our own product. And what kind of app for geeks that afraid of talking to ladies can come up with? An app to actually meet ladies. So we built this app. It has the worst name. It's called Squeak. Actually, you cannot imagine how many there are variations of actually spelling Squeak. So we had a bunch of issues with that. But there was some really smart concept that this is the sound a dolphin makes when they meet another dolphin.
Okay.
Don't ask me why. But long story short, this was a geolocation chat app. Basically, so when we're for instance when we're at the same restaurant, we could chat with each other and basically meet new people. So that was the concept. And there were 2 contexts or locations where we had like a stable amount of activity, chatting activity. It was universities and airports.
Okay.
And we realized that, well, this is interesting. I love to travel. Most of the time you spend at the airports, you do nothing. You want to socialize, communicate, but at the same time you have some specific needs, like, is my flight on time? What's the departure gate? Was it changed or not? Etc. So we realized that we could build this product that would basically help travelers navigate their travels, get the timely updates about their flights, but at the same time socialize with the fellow travelers. And there was this movie with George Clooney. It's called Up in the Air.
Yeah.
So essentially, the reason our app is called App in the Air,
Yeah.
we're basically playing with the name because that app was developed for that kind of people, as a George Clooney's character there. So, that's how we started. And we made the decision to to build this as a global app focused on the biggest markets, for the travel markets. Those at the time were US, UK, and China. Two of them speak English. So we decided we will build an app that gives you basic, like, utilitarian information about your flight, and there's a chat. So that's how App in a Year started. And 6 years later, we were at 4 million users worldwide. We were featured in Apple TV commercial. Every Apple store had our app installed on demo devices. We were featured on the Apple Store front page a bunch of times. And basically, at the time, a bunch of big travel brands started approaching us to acquire, and I think it just was about 12 to 18 months where we got like 4 really serious inquiries to acquire the company. And I didn't like most of those offers because essentially what they were proposing is the same as with our competitors. So TripIt, one of our competitors, was acquired by Concur, and basically apps stopped innovating.
Oh.
FlightTrack was acquired by Expedia, and basically the app was dissolved, and every customer or user was now had to use Expedia app. So that was the kind of deals we're getting, and I'm like, I'm not going for that kind of deal. And then there was this private equity fund that had a bunch of assets, has a bunch of assets in the aviation industry, and they made me a pretty good deal. Basically, we sold 75% of the company in cash, and they invested 30 million more for us to scale the product, plus build 2 other companies for that kind of in the aviation tech space. So that happened in 2018, and I built those additionally those 2 companies. We at the time we were 8 people, so just so you know, and obviously in a matter of 18 to 24 months we scaled to 100 people. I learned a lot in that experience in ultra growth kind of period of my life, but in 2022 I decided to leave the company to pursue the next waves while the company is operating, and basically 2 of the companies are have a pretty good traction. The third one is not that good, but that's basically what happened.
This is great. So what is then Life in the Year?
So Life in the Year is one of the companies that I had to build. So essentially what is, let me step back. At one point, on average, there were 2 passengers using App in the Year on every major airline flight.
Oh, wow.
So that was huge. But I had this dream that every passenger on a flight uses our product, and I started asking myself, well, how do we achieve that?
I love where this is going.
We realized we had to be a part of the plane. We had to build something that it goes with the plane, essentially. And that's how Life in the Year, the idea of Life in the Year was born. Obviously, through iterations, it evolved into something different than the original idea, but this concept still there. And actually, in 2022, when I left, we had about 200 aircraft using our Life in the Year product.
200.
Yeah, just FYI, there are only 30,000 commercial aircraft in the world. So it's almost 1%. Almost. Not there, but almost. And about 30% of the passengers on every flight of the airline that we were serving were using our product. So from 2 to essentially 60.
Yeah.
passengers on every flight, but only those airlines, obviously. And so, in a way, I at least partly achieved my dream. So, what software is? It's an in-flight e-commerce system. So, for an airline, for a low-cost airline, like for instance, Flair Airlines in Canada, we offer them an additional revenue by basically offering a bunch of digital services on board of the airplane, where when people are bored, they don't have internet access, and when people are bored, they like to spend money and consume content.
Yeah.
So if you offer something, you can actually sell it.
Yeah.
And that was our value proposition. We offered no capex no capital expenses from the airline kind of offer. We would install our system. Basically, it's a hardware and a software in the overhead bin of an airplane, and the passengers would be using it through their own devices via Wi-Fi and consuming content, paying for some of the content, buying seat upgrades. Like just imagine when an airplane leaves the ground, every vacant seat is a lost revenue.
Yep.
So if we can make at least $1 out of that seat, that's a pure operating income.
Yep.
So what we were doing is that we were offering people to upgrade after the plane actually departed. And sometimes it would be 3 seats and you can actually sleep. Or it could be an emergency row seat with a better legroom. Or just a way to get out of your fellow person that, let's say, takes, somehow distracts you, I'd say. So that's what we did, and that's what life in the air is.
Great. It must have been like hell to get all the certifications from all those like airplanes.
I'd say it was a challenge, but we were able to bypass some of the more challenging certifications. So for instance, you see some of the safety regulations, if you attach something to the aircraft, you have to perform a very advanced and costly certification. But if you're not attaching anything, if you're just placing something, then you're actually bypassing that like advanced and costly certification, but you still have to certify similar certifications similar to the iPad that pilot has. Every pilot has now has this iPad with the flight maps and some other documents. That's basically the same kind of certification that we had to get, and it was much easier. Plus, what's important for every low-cost airline is that with the advanced certification, the plane will have to be grounded for a couple of days, and this is a lost revenue. But when you actually just put something, you don't need that kind of advanced certification. So we were not actually, forcing the airline to ground the planes, which is a great opportunity. So that's it was not that hard because we designed the hardware and software in a way that would simplify the certification.
It's kind of like the FDA's like different levels of getting approval.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. This is really interesting. Before, when I started, when you caught like almost all waves of the tech innovation, I wanted to start like your education. You're from finance background. You graduated Bauman and you graduated Moscow State University in management. And you started coding from from like very early stage.
Yes.
Like, how did it happen? Like,
so first of all, that's my dad. My dad, he's a software developer. Actually, at one moment, like majority of banks in Turkmenistan were using his software. And I started coding at the age of 6 or 7, probably. Basically, this is when computer was brought into our house, and he gave me this book on BASIC, the programming language, and one of my first programs was this passcode kind of program where you should guess the passcode by asking questions like, the passcode was the number, so you were asking like, is the number like higher than 20 or lower than something, and basically this way the algorithm basically determines the exact passcode. But the my education at Bauman State University actually was a combined kind of program. So it was a combination of finance and software.
Yep.
So basically, we were taught to develop information systems for banks. So that's why we had to learn both finance and coding.
Yep.
And I always liked coding, and basically it was the right thing to choose because my dad, again, he was developing the software for banks. That's why he encouraged me to get that kind of education, which would be, and obviously he expected that I would go back to Turkmenistan and actually continue his legacy, but unfortunately no.
That would have been fun.
Yeah.
So like I see an example, a guy from Turkmenistan graduates this top universities, knows how to code, knows like finance, knows basics of all about management, and he goes into developing solutions, products as projects for clients, and then moves on to create his own project, the next big thing. Like you're not the first one from our region who fits this image of a person. Like he has a big like dev shop, serving clients, and then it's a moment like guys, like one of the products stick. So this is a great idea. We're gonna use it.
Yeah.
Like, do you think like there's is this specific type of image of a founder from our region, or have you seen more of these cases?
I think it's let me. One of my mentors, he was the founder of. For 5 years, I was working for one of the biggest software outsourcing companies as a developer, Java developer, up to senior project manager. And the founder of the company that was acquired by that company, and that's why we joined the bigger one, he actually at some point in my entrepreneurial career, he told me this thing. He said, Bayram, your ambitions are not in line with the business model that you chose. So you see, at the time we were doing the outsourcing, we were doing some management consulting, but the problem, this is a service business. The problem with the service business is that it scales only with people.
Yep.
But there are a limited number of smart people, right? And if you say want to 10x your revenue or market cap, well, most of the times you have to at least 7x the number of people. I was never a fan of company with a lot of people, at least at that time. And so that's the advice or feedback that he gave me, and I was like, yeah, and that's why we started building our own product. So I think one of the forces that basically pushes you into the product development as opposed to providing software outsourcing services is that you realize that you're hitting the ceiling. You're hitting the ceiling of growing the revenue, scaling the revenue, because you have challenges recruiting new people, or you're getting tired of doing the management stuff, and always my benchmark was Instagram. 13 people, $1 billion exit. So we were not at that level, but 8 people and I exit. But it was always my kind of benchmark that you can actually build a pretty good, pretty big company
Yep.
with a very limited number of people. Midjourney is a good
Yeah,
example right
yeah.
now, right? So I think what I'm trying to say is that people transitioning from service to product,
Yep.
they, I think, just stumble upon that problem, that ceiling of scaling the service business model, and that's why they switch to the product business model. That's so. I think it's pretty common. Probably it's not like a characteristic of the founders from our region.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Let's continue on this thought.
Uh-huh.
I think it was Sam Altman who said like soon there will be $1 billion products.
Yeah.
And I loved the
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah.
And like just before the podcast, we talked to two founders who are building like the AI co-pilot for lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And like you told the idea that service-oriented companies,
Mm-hmm.
it's only with the people you scale.
Yes.
And what the girls are doing is that like for the lawyers, for the attorneys, especially like the immigration attorneys,
Yep.
you don't have to turn down clients just because you don't have time. We will optimize you, we will like optimize your work so much that you will not need that many people to continue serving like 10 times more clients,
Yep.
for instance. Like,
Yep.
do you think are we there yet that the service models also will be able to grow as big as like some of those product companies
Yeah, I think-
have before?
Yeah, I think that we're definitely moving in that direction. So in economics, there's this concept of production possibility frontier. Basically, every company has limited resources,
Yep.
and they have to make a decision between how to basically distribute those resources between competing, say, products. Let's say there are two products, product A and product B. So there's resource. So you have to say allocate 100% of the resource to product A, but then you're not building product B, or vice versa, or somewhere in between. So this production possibility frontier actually describes the curve that describes this optimum allocation of resource between the two competing products. But once in every 10 to 15 years, probably, there appears a technology or some kind of other change. We can talk more about other changes, but technology is most I'm excited about, that actually pushes this production possibility frontier up to the right.
Yeah.
So what that essentially means is that you can produce more of A and B with the same resource.
Yeah.
And that, I think, for instance, AI is. So AI is pushing that production possibility frontier, and that's why the service companies will be able to basically produce more with the same amount of resources.
Yeah.
Why? Because every time we convert atoms to bits, we enable scaling. Like the reason we're converting experts into digital twins, we want to scale them, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's essentially what the founders of the legal startup that you mentioned are doing. They're basically converting legal specialists into code. And code, what's great about anything that becomes from analog to digital is that you can do three things. First of all, you can distribute, you can move with zero costs. You can copy with zero costs. And you can apply algorithms, which means that you can basically optimize or find the best solution. So when there appears a technology that converts something from analog, from physical to digital, that basically where the huge innovation wave starts. That happened with sound.
Yeah.
When sound was converted into digital, we got telephone, when like images were converted into digital, we got the TV and then the video, the digital video. And if you think of it, there's there are only probably two senses of a human that are not yet converted from the physical to digital. Those are the sense,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And those are the cognition.
Yeah.
And I think what AI does is it converts cognition
Yeah.
into digital form,
Yeah.
and that will enable a huge shift up to the right of the production possibility frontier of companies
Yeah.
which are heavy on using people's cognition.
Yeah.
Those are primarily companies with knowledge workers. Those are legal people, those
Yeah.
are experts, the thing that I'm going after with my team, and that kind of things.
That's great.
Yeah.
Like it kind of it brings me back to like the recent like World Economic Forum, Jan LeCun of Meta, he's said something like, we are training AI models now on text only.
Yeah.
So and it is limited.
Yep.
It's as limited as like like a child gets through his retina
Yep.
up until he's 4.
Yes.
It's like all the available information we're training
Yeah.
a child, like the information size is available. It's like
Yeah.
he gets up until he's 4, and like
Yeah.
all of the information available for the training, it's like 30 minutes of upload on YouTube.
Yep. Yeah.
If we move on to the other senses,
Yes.
like the vision,
Yeah.
the smell,
Yes.
and other
Yeah.
senses of a human
Yeah.
being, like there's a huge potential to train AIs.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, again, what I like about when anything becomes digital, you can apply those transformations, copying, moving, optimizing, and that means a much, 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 much faster innovation by definition.
Yeah.
Because you can experiment with the digital much faster than with the physical in terms of the costs, because essentially those are just electricity costs, and that's it.
Yeah.
So if you want to know what I'm like bullish about, is the energy. I think we will have issues with getting enough energy to
Yeah.
process all of those digital things that we create and optimize and copy and recombine them. And that's why I think the very smart people like Gates and others, they invest into the next ways of generating energy, nuclear fission, and etc.
So yeah, I think like the when the marginal cost of now what we're doing, the compute is becoming closer. In order to that become closer, the marginal cost of electricity should
Yes.
become
Yeah.
closer to zero. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, this is great. I really liked like going through a background.
Uh-huh.
What I really liked, you said like 2012 to 22, I sold my company, start some new venture,
Yep.
and I know that like 2022, you start your new venture, but like you started learning a lot. Like
Yeah.
I saw like
Absolutely.
lots of degrees,
That's
the, like
right.
the cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
economics of business,
Yeah.
management, CRISPR gene editing.
Yes, that's
Like,
right.
and I saw like
Yeah.
you just recently did like 2023
Yeah.
the language models, generative
Yeah.
AI. Like, tell me how to get this never-ending hunger for learning. And like, it seems like you mobile here, the cryptocurrency there, AI here. Is a true founder the founder for whom doesn't really matter what like startup or what like direction industry he goes into?
No, I think there are some like I think there are two types of founders. Those who are more rational, they just pick the market, the market segment. They apply the technology, they make an X, or they build it into a big company. And there are others who are going after some kind of problem or passion that they have. And you see, problems have this great energy generating kind of activity that even the biggest problem with any venture, any startup, is that at some point you want to stop. you just when you hit on issues, challenges, you're like, maybe I just step back, just go and work at some big company, and why should I spend 16 to 20 hours of every day on the stuff that no one likes?
Yeah.
So, but if you have like inherent passion or problem that bothers you, like for instance, for some people it could be that a close friend or relative died of some I don't know, a type of cancer, and that's why they dedicate most of their life to solve that problem. So when you have that kind of internal force that pushes you to go after that problem or passion, then you can actually never stop. You won't stop unless you solve the problem. So I think there are two types of founders, and they differ. In my case, what I was trying, I had money, I had time, and I wanted to spend enough time on choosing what technology I believe will shift the production possibility frontier and the business that I would be passionate about. And I have two passions in life. Those are travel and education. So essentially, one of the ventures I did was blockchain and travel.
Mm-hmm.
It was not successful, but we learned a lot, and I got to know a lot about the different cryptocurrencies, which is now rewarding. We were not successful, and now we're going after AI plus education because, and I see we launched the MVP in December, and I see a pretty good traction. That's why. A couple of weeks ago, I decided I'm going to dedicate the next 7 to 10 years of my life to this project. Of course, it may happen that I will stop earlier due to some issues, but I am ready to dedicate because on average you need 7 to 10 years to actually make it to the next level, either exit or IPO or what have you.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you for this so much. Let's move back. I have one question. Let's move back to where we are from, to our region.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Turkmenistan,
Yeah.
Uzbekistan, Central Asia in general, maybe.
Yeah.
One of the problems our region faces, first of all, let's not move to startups, is a climate change.
Yeah.
It's I've noted my parents and everyone keeps saying Tashkent, especially this year, has seen the worst air quality during the winter because of what we have done with all the concrete factories, all the production, all the construction, and also the heat needed to reproduce.
Yep.
Is also the second one is a water problem. It's the biggest in the region, especially with the Aral Sea getting there. There are lots and lots of problems. And I found somewhere that you said we should change the narrative from climate change kills us to climate change as a business opportunity.
Yeah, I at some point I realized that when you approach something just through the lenses of a problem, you can. So every problem has a useful function. That's the way. I'm a fan of systems thinking. Every system thinker would say that. Say that every problem has function. I'll give you an example. And what the challenge that humanity is facing is that when we approach something only through the lenses of a problem, forgetting about the useful functions that problem has, by trying to remove the problem, we're essentially trying to remove those useful functions. And what happens is that system would not be happy about it because there was a useful function that was removed because the problem is being solved. So when I think we approach the climate change or any kind of problem from the perspective of a system, we need to like think of all of the useful functions that are there and make sure that we have a plan how to compensate for those useful functions, because the moment we remove the problem, those functions will be removed as well. So let me give you a simple, my favorite example, and then we'll take it from there. So in our countries especially, there's this problem that everyone likes to talk about. It is the problem of bribes in education, that you can bribe a professor to get your A or something for an exam. And yes, that's definitely a problem, because essentially that means that we cannot rely on the grades.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But what is the other any useful functions of bribes in a university or school? Well, if you think of this, this is a source of additional income for professors and teachers, right? This is useful, right?
Yeah.
Especially when they have a pretty low salary levels.
Yeah.
Or if the cost of living is high, which was the case in Moscow when I was studying there, you don't have enough money. So you have to work and study. But that means that you have to prioritize the lectures you're going to attend and the lectures that you're going to skip.
Yeah.
So essentially, by having an opportunity to get an A without actually studying that subject is a very useful way of you having enough time to work and get the experience, which will be essential for your post-studies work, right?
Yeah.
Because no one wants to hire a person without any experience, but you can't get experience if you're not working, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that when we approach that every problem, we should think about the useful functions, and we should basically come up with the solutions that compensate for the useful function that problem generates. And with the climate change, I think that sometimes people come up with solving some aspects of the problem without thinking of how to compensate for the useful functions that that problem has. Let me give you a really simple example. Let's say we say that we need to replace the use of oil with, say, solar energy. And we think that oil is the problem. But let's think about all of the people and industries and tax revenue, tax incomes, and etc. that industry generates. What will happen if we try to, say, prohibit the use of oil? Well, people, companies, even some government agencies will not be happy, because there was a useful function that was generated or was executed provided for by that problem. So when we think of this, I think need to come up with solutions that would take into account those useful functions. And I'm not an expert in the area. It's just that I think when we talk about problem, we have this tendency to think linearly, and we do not think that every system will not be happy if those functions are not compensated for. And that's very... I'll give you another story, very interesting story. So there was this group sponsored by Ford Foundation. And they were trying to teach Indian families to basically control the birth So they wanted to basically, on average, every Indian family had about 3 point something number of children, and they needed to get this number down to 2 or less. So they were trying hard to fix that problem. They were thinking of this as a problem, 3.26. I don't know, remember the exact number. Let's say 3.2 children for every family. And they were approaching this as a problem, but there was no success. Like they had this lectures, they had this, they gave them this contraceptives and stuff, but no changes in childs per family. And when they were sharing their frustration with one of the systems thinkers, he asked them, "Well, why do they stop?" Like, there was this article about a woman in some Indian village that had 18 children. So why do they stop at 3.2?
Yeah.
And when they asked this problem, they started investigating, interviewing, and they realized that, well, there's this tradition that in order to get a good retirement kind of life, you need to have 3 sons in your Indian family. But on average, you get to 3 sons when you have 3 point something children per family. So they were trying to compensate for the lack of social security programs in India with this kind of, and the Western people who approached this from the perspective of this is a problem. We're not thinking about those more deeper kind of rational reasons to have more than 3 children per family. And that's, I think, is a good illustration when, and there are a bunch of similar situations when the Western approach of a problem, especially from a problem perspective, basically generates a bunch of unintended consequences and never actually solves the core issue because not enough time and mental effort was spent on actually trying to understand the whole system and compensate for the function. So essentially, what I'm trying to say, if there was a good social security program, they would not have 3.2. They would get down to, I don't know how many, but we see that in developed countries, right?
Yep.
So that's what I'm trying to say is that climate change, if we think of this holistically, I think we will reframe the way we approach this, and probably we'll have better chances to actually solving the issue.
All right, great. Thank you. Another thought I want to discuss. I think this will be a kind of a discussion about the startup ecosystem, future founders in our region. Here in Silk Road, and I'm personally a believer that the talent is spread equally, but the opportunities are not. So what do you think about the future unicorns? Like, will there be future unicorns from Turkmenistan? Obviously from someone originating from Turkmenistan, after you. Like the second unicorn.
Well, I'm not there yet. Not there yet. But I totally agree that talent is distributed, but you see, again, this is in system thinking, we try to approach situations from the kind of, it's called a feedback loop point of view. So I think there's an interplay of the opportunities and talent that reinforces each other. Like the more talent you have, the more opportunities you get. The more opportunities you get, the more talent you have. So what I'm trying to say is that probably this is reinforcing feedback loop working, and maybe by just giving the opportunities in our region, that will not be enough, because you need time when these two things work with each other in this reinforcing feedback loop to get to the point where that evolves into unicorns or the ecosystem, the VC ecosystem, and such. And I think it's also about the laws. Like I was listening to this new podcast by BG Squared by Gerstner and Gurley, and they were talking about the bankruptcy law in U.S. and why that's important, right? And I think that the law and probably a bunch of other elements work in sync with each other, reinforce each other, and like propel ideas to companies to unicorn. So I'm afraid that I don't have enough like understanding of the system and the way it works. But I would just say that I think that it's not only about opportunities; it's much more, and it's a function of time where those forces work with each other, reinforce each other, and build the foundation for the unicorns. So essentially, if maybe we spent more time not in Silicon Valley but in our countries, maybe that's the feedback loop that is broken here, and that's why that feedback loop is not moving as fast as it should be, because we're basically not giving back enough to increase the chances of. And there's some like unofficial laws, like traditions, like tradition of the role of woman in a society that may also like maybe slow down the innovation process. There could be the legacy of Soviet Union that impacts us in a big way. Like for instance, I was talking to this to the family of my friend, and to his mom, and she said that back in Soviet Union, entrepreneurs were bad people, and probably somewhere in the mental models of many people in our countries which were part of Soviet Union, there is this unspoken idea that entrepreneurship is not that good. Because entrepreneurship, well, maybe sometimes is associated with going against traditions, or individualism versus collectivism, and the Eastern societies are more collective than Western societies. So maybe there's that kind of legacy that impacts the thinking, and we know that we need at least 2 generations for those mental models to disappear. While at the moment we're just 1 generation, apart from the fall of Soviet Union. So maybe we just need that. In systems thinking, one of the key things that impacts the dynamics of a system is a delay, like time delay. Maybe we just need time delays as well, not only the opportunities and such. So that's how I think. And again, I'm not an expert, and probably this system needs to be studied thoroughly to answer that kind of questions.
Yeah, like I always think about those kind of the type of things. Like, is it like for some of the Central and Eastern Europe countries, they came out of the Soviet Union. Like, we share somehow similar the history, legacy, background, and like Estonia itself has 8 unicorns.
Yes.
Like a 1.5 or 2 million population, and like they have 8 unicorns. Ukraine, similar with Uzbekistan, 36 million population, and they have 8 unicorns, 2 of which was during the war. I kind of think like is it really important? Like, for instance, let's talk about the market size. You worked in a market, especially like the Russian market. It was huge. Like,
Yeah.
even if you did something, there was considerable resources,
Yep.
people who could consume.
Yep.
The GDP per capita was higher
Yeah.
than our countries
Yep.
back in Central
Yep.
Asia. Taking this in mind, do you think like for our startups, is it better for them to concentrate on their markets back home, or should they just start from day one some bigger market?
I'm gravitating towards focusing on bigger markets first. I just think so, but maybe that's not the right way to think about it. I don't know. It's just that I'm gravitating towards that kind of. There's this investor, and he had this story that I really liked. So he has a conversation with a young entrepreneur, and at some point, and that entrepreneur explains that their company will focus on the local market first, and then they will go global, and blah blah blah. I think they were from Belarus, and he's asking him, "Can you swim?" And he says, "Yeah, I can swim, of course." And he gets a glass of water, spills it, and says, "Swim." So what he was trying to illustrate was the concept: if you can swim, why swim in a small pond? But I think there's a competing point of view here. Like, for instance, Peter Thiel's point of view that you have to be a monopolist in a small market first, and then you should expand to adjacent markets. I don't know what's the right way of doing this. I just think that how close to the market is the economy of a given state also impacts the dynamics of the, of course, I mean, the market size is always the limiting factor, especially if there's a huge difference. But if you think about it, it's not only about the size of the population, right? Because obviously we see the difference.
Yeah.
For instance, one of the factors that I realized impacts the markets, the size of the markets as opposed to the size of the population, is the accessibility of credit. And I'm not sure if it's a good thing or bad thing, actually, but I know that the majority of population and households in the U.S. are actually living without any savings. They're actually are permanently in debt, in permanent debt. And so, but at the same time, that grows the market, the spending, and the stuff, right? So I'm not sure if it's good or bad from the business perspective. Maybe it's good from the quality of life perspective. Maybe that's bad. I don't really know. I know that credit is very important for any market economy, and that you probably saw the Argentina's president speech at Davos. And I think the point is that capitalism, market economies, they outperform other kind of economies. So what I'm trying to say is that maybe the level of the government intervention in the economy also impacts the sizes of the market or the opportunities, all other things equal, right? So maybe, I don't know, I'm not a macroeconomist, I'm just trying to ask the right questions, and one of the questions is the level of government involvement into the economy, and I'm sure it's much higher in our regions that, say, in Estonia. I'm sure about that.
Yeah. I'll give you the last question.
Okay.
Then I won't bother you anymore. You mentioned the Milei speech, right?
Yes.
The Argentina's.
Yeah.
And as soon as he gave the speech, within minutes, there were speeches out in hundreds of languages. The dubbing was lip syncing, and it was as if we're watching. They kept the accent of Milei in Hindi or in Russian,
Nice.
it was there. just a question
Uh-huh.
as a just your feeling. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be really deep. How close do you think? Because when I
Yeah.
was like a week ago, I was giving an interview, and there were a bunch of people
Uh-huh.
on the Zoom screen,
Uh-huh.
and the screen was being recorded. One
Uh-huh.
of the guys didn't speak English, and the
Uh-huh.
interview was in English, and he was speaking his own language,
Yeah.
and like there was a translator translating.
Yeah.
Like, question: how close are we to the point where I'm speaking in my own language,
Yeah.
Uzbek,
Yeah.
and on the other hand, on the other side, they
Yeah.
hear with a lip sync,
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
dubbing in English, in
We're
Russian.
there.
We're there?
Yes. I mean, it's just that it's not scalable
Yeah.
and cost effective as we would like it to be, but we're there. I mean, one of the things that we're working is not only the cognitive digital
Yeah.
twin, but also the visual
Yeah,
digital twin.
yeah.
And I can't share anything yet. I mean, there's a very bad quality deepfake that I did, coded myself in my channel, Telegram channel. But we're working on this because I'm absolutely sure that maybe the next time we meet,
Yeah.
I will show you my YouTube channel
Yeah.
with shorts,
Yeah.
the video shorts that was never actually captured by me.
Yeah.
Those were auto-generated. I think where there is just a matter of a function of cost and scalability, but we're there. I'm absolutely. It's just a matter of months to bring down the costs to the level that would be acceptable for a more kind of mass
Mass use,
adoption. Yes.
So then the cost of bringing the cost down is a matter of compute costs, which comes down to electricity costs.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. And you see, one of the interesting things about what's going on right now is that we are typically the value migrates from the chip makers
Mm-hmm.
to the apps through the platform. So
Yeah.
let's say if we take the mobile value creation and capture, initially most of the value was captured by Qualcomm's and those kind of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Then it moved to Google and Apple with their operating systems, and then it moved to Ubers and others, Instagrams
Yeah.
of this world. So I think with the AI, we're at the beginning of the value being captured by chip makers.
Oh.
We're just at the beginning of the whole thing, and obviously that's why Nvidia outperforms the stock price every fucking day. Like yesterday, I think I received 3 notifications from Robinhood that their stock price achieved
went
the
up.
all-time 52-week high,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all-time high. I don't know, but obviously, and there's a lot of speculation about whether that's justifiable or not. Especially, have you seen this movie Dumb Money?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
especially in spite of that movie, but still, I think that there's a huge potential for Nvidia and other players to capture the value not only on the chip makers kind of stage, but the platforms stage. That's why I think Nvidia develops and optimizes for special kind of libraries that accelerate the inference of the models and stuff like that. I think they want to make sure that they are capturing the next kind of transition of value to those platforms. They want to be in that space. They want to make sure that they keep the developers and the developers of the models and services, they keep them on the NVIDIA architecture and NVIDIA software so that NVIDIA could capture that value. That will transition. We know that from the previous waves will transition to from the chip makers to the problem with chip makers is just one. It's a physical product.
Mm-hmm.
Physical products have limits, but this will be solved. Like was sold with face masks when COVID started, right? You remember the
Yeah,
price of
yeah,
the mask
yeah,
initially,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
in a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
I think the same kind of dynamic, but on a like longer time scale, will happen here at some point. Nvidia, and I'm sure the Nvidia management realized that this will not be the limiting factor,
Yeah.
and so they want to capture, they want to make things now that would guarantee the value capture at the next stage of the value transition.
One last question. Sorry.
Sure, yeah.
This question I ask at the end of our podcast for all our guests. Let's imagine you're trying to convince your VC friend here, maybe, or say a founder comes, like he's originally comes from Turkmenistan, trying to pitch product. What arguments would you use to try to convince him to invest in that founder from Turkmenistan?
Frankly, I would not use some specific argument.
No?
Frankly. Yeah, I truly believe that we should care more not about the origins or skincare or gender, or we should focus on the results.
Mm-hmm.
We should focus on the you know, the willingness to take responsibility and stuff like that. And I think those things,
Yeah.
they don't, I think, I don't know, they don't depend on whether a person is from Turkmenistan or from US. I think it's a function of some combination of that person was raised,
Yeah.
and some internal characteristics of the person and external hero figures that person, you know, face. And again, that's my view.
Yeah.
I think that we should like care more about the willingness to take responsibility, to take risk, and to show to walk the talk, basically.
Thank you,
Thank you
Bayram.
very
Thank you for coming. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Cry by every step in my